You're listening to the Woman of Value podcast. You are about to hear the story of a woman who is following her dreams and passions and creating positive change in the world.
You're proud when you reach challenges and you're proud when you overcome challenges. And to take the path of, hi, I'm the boss's daughter, was not a place that I wanted to be. I wanted to succeed on my own. I wanted to get in on my own, grow on my own, learn things on my own, and then kind of bring it back to the company with me.
Welcome back to the Woman of Value podcast. I am so excited for my guest today. Her name is Sarah Hiner. She's the president and CEO of Bottom Line Inc. It is a family-owned business that provides information and products to help people live happier, healthier, more informed lives. Their flagship publication is Bottom Line Personal, and it is the largest consumer newsletter. The company sells nearly 1 million books every year without Amazon or a bookstore. That's pretty amazing. And I have friends who have been getting the Bottom Line newsletter for years. And when I told them that I knew the people who run this company, they were like, oh my God. So Sarah is leading the company through the transition from print to digital. She's passionate about giving people the tools and knowledge they need to take more control of their lives in areas like women's health, the challenges of the healthcare system, and boy, are they a lot, common sense, financial advice, and family life. She's often on national radio, and she writes a blog called Common Threads and hosts the Bottom Line Advocator podcast. If that's not enough, she's also a mom, and she has a dog who might appear in this podcast. Welcome to the show.
And 2 children.
And 2 children, yes,
Yeah.
which is a full-time job in and of itself, even if they're not home, right?
Yes.
So Sarah, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here.
Well, thank you so much. I love talking to you. I always do.
Oh, thank you. Well, I've been on
Right.
Bottom Line for many years now as a dating expert, and we did a bunch of videos together. That was really fun. And now we get to put you on the other side of the mic. And
I know. It's a little uncomfortable for me not being in the control seat.
I know. Let's see what happens when we take control away from Sarah Hiner. So let's start with, what does a woman of value mean to you?
To me, and I'm kind of a terrible person for this podcast. Let me just say, I apologize in advance because I'm so not part of the pro-woman movement. I'm kind of a people-ist and a responsibility-ist. And to me, a woman of value is somebody that's a great role model for everybody. And that it's not about women. It's about being a great citizen. It's about being great in contribution and giving back to the world, and a role model for your kids and family and all that. But I'm not somebody who lives in the gender tracks, honestly.
Great.
I like to be a people of value.
I like it. I like it. You can start another podcast.
In my spare time.
Yeah.
About what do I think of women who don't need sleep value, right?
Well, that's a good invention.
Right.
Women who don't need sleep, who still accomplish great things.
It's true.
Which brings me to my next question, because you have accomplished many great things, sleeping or not sleeping. And we want to hear about the challenges that you faced early on in your life and your career, and your aha moment when you stepped more fully into your value.
Well, so, I started out in advertising. I did not start out working for the family business at all. And I guess I had a few aha moments of a woman of value. So I worked, my brief history. The company was started when I was 12 years old by my father, as you know, but no one out there knows, but now they all do. I tell my children I'm working since I'm 12. And so I worked for the company, middle school, high school, college vacations, and things like that. And I went to the outside world because when and if I came to the company, I wanted to bring value to the company. And so I worked in advertising. I started my way up. I took a typing test, even though my father had connections and knew all sorts of big, powerful advertising people. I went and took a typing test and became a secretary at Gray Advertising. And I worked my way up there. So I've lived in the outside world. I've lived in the world of, right now, are men different than women and all that. And I always stuck to my track. So, kind of an aha moment of in that world was simply that I'm not, like, I was able to work my way up. I was able to, that following your path and your passion rather than being someone. I was on the other podcast yesterday, actually, and they asked me how come I didn't go into the business, the family business right away. And I think it's about finding your passion and developing your self-esteem and you're proud when you reach challenges and you're proud when you overcome challenges. And to take the path of, hi, I'm the boss's daughter, was not a place that I wanted to be. I wanted to succeed on my own. I wanted to get in on my own, grow on my own, learn things on my own, and then kind of bring it back to the company with me. So that was super powerful. When I came into the company, frankly, years later, I have an older brother and a younger sister that were working here already. Now, in the land of, if you want to talk genders, in the land of genders, boys beat girls, right? But it's primogenitor, the eldest, my brother's the oldest, so the oldest male. And so he should have been in charge, and he's on every measure, he's smarter than I am, and he's been here longer, and he's older, and all of that. Through a lot of work with a lot of consultants, we came to understand and appreciate the different skills that we had, and that his skill set was not the skill set for leading the company. My skill set was the one for leading the company. He's the skill set for being the really smart guy when I need to get smart answers. So learning to appreciate the skills that I have and to use the team around me for what I don't have. You don't have to have everything. We women, they feel like they have to be the Anjali woman. We feel like pressured. We can't ask for help. We have to be able to know everything. We have to be able to do everything. And it's just not true. You just cannot do it. And learning to respectfully value the strengths and weaknesses of everybody on the team. Not everybody is me. And I am not as good at everybody at a lot of other things. And that's kind of part of the art of, I think, leadership, is finding those strengths and working with people in their limitations to get the most out of them. Did I answer your question in the middle of all of that?
Yeah. No, it's
Somewhere.
very interesting. I didn't know about your advertising background, and Gray Advertising is one of the top advertising firms. I actually wanted to go into advertising many years ago as a copywriter, and I decided that it wasn't for me. But I think it's very admirable that you didn't want to just have the nepotism card and just get in as your father's daughter.
No, and frankly, I was grateful I was married when I came to the company, even though obviously everyone knew that I was the boss's daughter. I didn't want, with every handshake, with every hello, with every business card handed out, for somebody to immediately assume boss's daughter or lucky gene pool. And it's natural. I mean, people do it. So I don't begrudge them doing it, but I liked being able to hide a little bit before that came out.
Mm-hmm. And then the whole age order and gender order is very interesting. And it sounds like you all now are comfortable with your place in the company, the three siblings. Is that
extremely
true?
Yeah. Now, it took years. I mean, it was interesting actually when my father, he founded a company. He didn't know, he was just doing his thing, and he never really thought about the future either in terms of succession planning and grooming and what happens later. So 30 years, a long, long time ago, he came in one day, called the three kids in and said, I guess we should think about the future. Go to lunch and figure out what you want to do. Okay, Dad. There's planning. Anyway, long story short, we actually brought family business consultants in to work with us because we didn't know what to do either. And we knew that there were relationship issues and role issues. And we were very young at the time. We were in our kind of late 20s, early 30s. So it was really quite early in our careers for even thinking about that, even though now we've got, 25-year-old multimillionaires. But way back when, we were young in terms of that life cycle. And it was working with a number of these business consultants that helped us work through together the plan. We did all sorts of, personality screenings and tests and discussions to understand and respect the strengths and limitations of each of us. Because, you want to get a little catty, you still have sibling rivalry, it's not fairs, in full disclosure, but you work through that and you come to realize, wow, thank goodness, my sister has this skill because I sure don't. Thank God my brother has that skill because I sure don't. And they look at me all the time and go, thank goodness that you have to have those conversations because we sure don't feel like it. So we've really come to appreciate it. And very, very lucky in our relationship. And I think unique, actually. Not you hear a lot of horror stories about family businesses.
Yeah, I was going to say it's unique. And one of the unique things, and on top of the fact that you all get along and know and value each other's roles, is that you seek help and support. And I think this is true across the board for your company, because I know of a lot of family businesses that don't do well, that really have a lot of animosity and explode. But
screaming up the hallway,
it's one of the hardest things to do. I don't work with my siblings. I don't work with any family members. But what I was thinking about as you're talking is that your whole business is around a growth mindset. It's around knowledge is power. Let's be empowered. And so tell us a little bit about, how all that feeds into your company, the mindset, all of that.
Well, actually, I was just going to say it to you, actually, the whole premise of our business is going to the top experts. Why did we come to you? We came to you because you were the top dating expert. So the whole premise from the start was finding the top experts that people out there in real life land didn't necessarily have access to, and that we could connect them to those people that they would never necessarily talk to. So we can have conversations with the top neurologist in the country, the top migraine expert in the country, the top tax expert. I mean, we had the top dogs in every category that we nurtured relationships with. We would have dinner with them regularly. And our whole premise was to get the answers directly from them. So I grew up in a world of seeking information. My father, so his history was he was a poor boy from Newark, New Jersey, and he was in sales, and he wanted to learn everything, read every book he could, every magazine he could. And he came to realize that in a 250-page book, there's a nugget, right? There's some paragraph somewhere that's the basic nugget, and then there's 249 pages validating that nugget. But all you need is the nugget. And so he wanted to bring those nuggets to the world, and he wanted to give people the nuts and bolts. What should I do about it? Like, it's merely interesting to know theoretically there's a new vaccine available. Okay, so they're rushing a new coronavirus vaccine out there, right? Major issue going on. But what does that really mean? Do you really want to be the first online for that, no matter how scary they say this pandemic is? Is it for everybody? What are the risks? What about if you have other health issues? So we get to the what does it mean to me? It's not just the headline, it's what's going on behind it. So what should I do about it? So our, in general, that's what we try to help people to be able to do, to find the information. I have a kind of a motto that people have more power over their lives than they realize they have. They just don't know what to do. They're a little stuck. They don't know who the top, OBGYN is if they've got fibroids, or, they don't know the latest technologies or procedures on it. So we're able to give them that piece of information and wisdom so that they can then make the right decision in their lives.
Very empowering. So important. Yeah, it's very empowering. I'm all about that, obviously. It's my whole business. But I find that so many people will go online, they'll try to find the answers. They get all confused. And it happens in the dating industry too. Oh my God, like all the conflicting advice out there, and so much of it is terrible. And so what I try to provide is the same thing. It's like, here in a nutshell is what you need to know. Here are the principles that are going to guide you. And here's how to make better choices in your life. Because the whole point is not to have somebody say to you, you need to do X, Y, and Z. We need to figure out what works best for us. Like you said, the coronavirus vaccine is not going to be right for every single person. And do you want to take that risk? And what other issues are you dealing with? So
now, and of course, the dangers of the internet world is that everybody became an expert. Doctors will regularly say the worst thing you can do is go check with Dr. Google, right? And now Google has helped a lot of people. It gives you a lot of information. You get a diagnosis, you want to get background information on something, great. You get a notification from the IRS, they want to charge you something and you want to understand what on earth is going on, great. But you have to also evaluate, as you say, understand it in the context and use it for what that information is best for. That And again, in Google land or in the internet land, everyone has become an expert. Every blogger, every influencer, this whole social media influencer world, it's a little bit crazy.
It's a lot crazy.
To see who everybody's following as their grand poobah of, especially in health, nutrition, self-improvement. It's really kind of frightening out there.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Yeah. I mean, one of the most empowering things I did was when my firstborn was born with a genetic disease that was misdiagnosed, was to trust my gut and to question doctors. I had never questioned doctors. None of us were taught that we're supposed to question God, and but something felt off, and it felt off. It felt like it was the wrong diagnosis. I searched for more answers. I got the answers. It wasn't the answer I wanted because it was a fatal diagnosis, but it gave me good information that helped me to find the right doctors, to find the right organization who could support me. And I'm all about that knowledge. So I love what you guys do. And what I really love is those bottom line dinners. So I would love for you kind of touched on it. It is the most amazing experience for me the first time I went. So tell us a little bit about that.
So this kind of goes back to the early days of the business, and my father, his unquenchable thirst for knowledge and experts. And he would spend 5 nights a week actually in New York. We lived in New Jersey, but as the business grew and he got busier and busier, he had a little apartment in New York, and he would stay in New York, and he'd have dinner every night of the week with different experts. And over time, he would have these monthly dinners for about 15 to 20 people at his apartment. And he'd bring the experts together. It wasn't really networking. It was just idea sharing. It was what's going on, what's new in the dating world, what's new in the tax world, what's new in real estate, and just sharing ideas. People would talk about what they're seeing, and they would make connections. There were a lot of business deals that got made over those dinners. It was there were some romantic connections that also got made actually over those dinners. For the business itself, it created a level of rapport between us and the experts. So, Sandy, you're interviewed by all sorts of publications on all sorts of media, and they interview you and you give them your answers, and then you hope that they quoted you the way you want. But when you're with us, you know that you're going to get the chance to review your information. And we've had that one-on-one connection over the dinner table where I know you as a person and you know us as people, so that we've got a different level of trust and relationship. So it really helped us solidify this network of experts that we call on regularly. And they love to hear from us. I was just saying, I recorded my own podcast a little while ago with one of the top headache migraine experts. I called him the other day, said I wanted to do something on migraines. He said, I'm so excited you called because there's a whole bunch of new treatments that I want to be able to share. Like he wouldn't necessarily take that call from anybody in the world, but I sent him an email and it's like, please, let's do it. And a week later, I had him on my program. So it's been, phenomenal. The people that I've been able to meet and touch, that all of us have been able to, and all these top experts are people. That's the really interesting thing. Like, as you meet all, like, they're so smart. They're the tippy top person. No, they're really kind of people, which is beautiful. Right.
That took me a long time to realize. When I first started being a public figure, I was so intimidated by so many people. I mean, they have so much more than I have. And, I put everybody on a pedestal. And I realized that we're all the same. We all have fears. We all have self-doubt, imposter syndrome. We all have it. But they're fascinating. And, I made great connections, and people from such diverse backgrounds, like coin collectors and, health experts,
security experts, and travel experts.
Yeah, really. So you're sitting around the table with fascinating people. When I lived in Manhattan, we had dinners like that. And when I moved to the suburbs, it was all about home renovations. It was like, it's really
a little
boring.
harder.
Yeah. I like to have
it's
those.
Funny. When so our company had been in New York, and then we relocated to Connecticut after the first World Trade Center bombing in 1990. I guess the bombing was in 93. We relocated in 94. And my father tried to do dinners up in an apartment in Connecticut where they had moved up to, and he couldn't get the same people, because people come to New York. We would get people from across the country. They were traveling to New York anyway. Or in fact, we had a lot of people who loved the dinner so much, and we used to have it at the Four Seasons restaurant, which was, of course, everyone wanted to go there. And then when the Four Seasons closed, we had it at the Modern, which was spectacular. The food, the ambience. If anyone hasn't been there and wants a treat, go to the Modern. So people would come to New York, especially when they'd arrange their schedule so they could come to the dinners. Well, no one wanted to come to Southern Connecticut. It was nice, but a little more limiting. So we went back to New York because you were able to just pull from such a great pool of people.
Yeah, and they're both amazing restaurants. I've been to both with you guys.
Unfortunately, the Four Seasons no longer.
Yeah, but that was amazing. It's an amazing experience. It's special on so many levels.
Mm-hmm.
So we touched a little bit before on your leadership style, and that you like to call on people who have skills that you don't have. Tell us how your style of leadership evolved, and if you have a story to share about maybe some screw-ups. Those are always fun to share.
The most embarrassing leadership mistake I ever made. I'm not sure. Let me ponder that while I talk. The thing, as I was pondering this conversation, and, true confessions, Sandy sent me the list of questions beforehand, so I got to be prepared. Shh, don't tell. But the thing that I feel very proud of in terms of my leadership style, and I think this is really important for any leader, is I have to get in sync with whoever I'm being with, right? So that I've got my style. I am who I am. But if I'm talking, there are some people, how there's some people in your lives, you can have a 30-minute conversation in 5 minutes. You're just really synchronized, quick, right? And there are some people in your lives that you can have a 5-minute conversation in 30 minutes. And you got to wait for the gem that comes at the end. And all those types of people are in the company. Now, we're a small company, so I'm very in touch with individuals. If I was at, Amazon, obviously hundreds of thousands of employees, different. But I think any leader within your group, you need to understand who the people are, and you have to adjust a little bit when you're interacting with them and understand who that person is. So I was talking to someone today who is new to working with one of our outside partners, one of our outside vendors. Now, usually this woman's she's in our marketing department, and she's used to dealing with very professional management, structured vendors, very on time, orderly, etc. Well, this guy is an artist in his soul. And you don't just send him an email. This is a guy that you're going to have to really build rapport with. You're going to have to talk on the phone with. It takes a different kind of interaction in order to get the best and the most out of those people. And I think for anyone in leadership that you need to shift yourself. And I don't mean to be a chameleon, and I don't mean stop being who you are, but I mean adjust. Like, I know there's those 5-minute people that take 30 minutes. I sit there in my head and going, okay, wait for it. I have to really slow myself down because I know there's a gem later, and it's important for that person to be heard. So I think that's one of the keys to my success as a leader as well.
That's such an important piece. Yeah. And I think people don't realize we have to communicate in the way that the other person needs to be communicated with. Yeah. That's, I think, when you take that responsibility, and not just as a leader of a company, but like in any interaction.
Oh, yeah.
We think everybody processes the way we do. And even with kids, I mean, I have one kid who processes so differently from me, and I get so impatient, and I'm like jumping on every word she says, and I have to just slow it down and realize that she may not mean it the way I think she means it. And, and with my son, it's like complete flow. But I'm like you, I like the bottom line. Like, I even train my clients to bottom line what they're saying. And I ask them permission to interrupt them if they're going off on story, because I want to get to the nuggets. Let's not waste each other's time. But it's a training.
And that works with some people. Some people, if I interrupt them, some people don't mind. We interrupt each other perfectly fine. Other people flips them out and shuts them down if I interrupt them. My husband can't stand when I interrupt him. Yeah. He takes it as the world's biggest offense. And I'm going, I'm just on to the next idea. I'm ready to talk. I know what you're going to say.
Right.
But it's so important. And yes, as a parent, I mean, I have two daughters as different could be, and I had to parent them differently.
Right.
And then one says, well, it's not fair. It didn't let me do that. Well, different things for different kids, different support for different kids. One of them actually I'll call it flew freer earlier because she was at a different stage. The other one needed a little bit more support for a little bit longer. That's okay. Like it's what you do in life.
Yeah. I think when we try to put everybody in one box and see them all the same is when we get into trouble. And then we wonder why everybody's crazy.
Which is why I'm such a people-ist. I don't like labeling people. I don't like talking about, all women are the same. No, we're not.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't believe all women are the same. And just to explain a little bit about the Woman of Value brand is that I see more women not valuing themselves enough. And I especially saw it in the dating world where women gave up their value constantly and tried to twist themselves into a pretzel to accommodate. And so I think just empowerment is really what I take a stand for in general. I mean, I help my son as much as I help my daughters to speak up and show up in their lives because I think it's really important to be empowered.
Yes.
And
I agree with you. I think there are a whole bunch of women who don't value themselves enough. I think we don't understand men. I think there needs to be a feminism movement, frankly. I think men aren't allowed. And I think they're getting pummeled right now.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Right. There's a book called, what's it called? That's What She Said. And there's a subtitle. Have you seen that book?
No.
So she talks about the value of having a more inclusive work environment and to educate men about how women need to be in the boardroom and how we can all support each other, that we can't really exist just one gender. I know women who are like, it's got to be a women-run world, and I'm not that woman.
Well, not only that, we're not, I know they want equality and equal opportunity. We're not the same.
We're not.
I am not the same. No way, shape, or form do I have a bunch of those skills. Now, some women think like men, some men think like women, but we're just not the same. And thank goodness that we're not the same,
Absolutely.
You need that compliment.
Yeah, it would be really boring. Like so many women used to say, I'm just looking for someone who's exactly like me.
My God, you have you already.
Right. Yeah, really. You'd be bored to death and kill that person.
Yeah, I have me. I don't need another one.
Right. You'd drive yourself crazy too.
Please, yeah.
So do you have any embarrassing leadership stories to share?
As I'm thinking, I haven't. I have an embarrassing, I have one that like the worst moments in my business life with my father. It wasn't.
Share that.
It wasn't a leadership. It was actually, I guess here's an interesting, and it kind of relates to what we're talking about. So I will say this. So my dad, who was a pretty powerful guy, and he liked if no good vacation went unpunished. Somebody goes on vacation and he would just jump right in and dabble, and he had his hands in everything. And I went on vacation one time. I was in charge of our customer service and our operations at that point in time, and distribution and things like that. And my dad had a thing about he wanted people to get the first issue of their publication faster. And if anyone subscribed to magazines, you know that crazily, it takes like a month to 2 months to get your first issue. It's a little crazy, but it's the way the industry always worked. Maybe now you can get it in a couple of weeks, but printing cycles and stuff. Anyhow, I went on vacation. I come back and my team says to me, your dad wants to have a meeting. He's been talking about faster fulfillment. He wants to print today and mail tomorrow. Okay. Now, we could do anything, right? If you know why you want to do it, there was no proof that if I did that, which would increase cost, that I'd increase customer satisfaction necessarily. There's no proof I'd get more pay up. There was nothing at all. So he's called this meeting. I go show up in the meeting. Now, he's got caught with his hand in the cookie jar a little bit, right? Because now I show up in the meeting and he got caught that he was dabbling in my place, but whatever. So we sit down in the meeting and he says, okay, what's happening with this? And I said, tell me why you want to do this. And I honestly wanted to know, I want to know his goal. Like, if you want me to FedEx it, I could. I could do anything. I just need to understand. And I think in business in general, if you understand the context and you know the goal, then it's easy to, then the steps work themselves out. If you have no context and you say, just go do this, well, you can't put the pieces together. Well, so I asked him, why do you want to do this? Well, he turned purple with rage because he thought I was challenging his authority. He didn't hear it the way that I intended it. And he ripped me up one side, down the other, stormed out, called another meeting, called my siblings, called all the leadership in, called me in, ripped me in front of there, absolutely annihilated me. Wasn't one of my best moments in business. But lesson learned, back to this understanding the context and the communication, right? So I was honestly trying to help him and answer his question. I honestly wasn't mad because it's what he did. So it wasn't like I was mad that he did it and he's the boss. And he wasn't in sync with me in terms of understanding what I was trying to do, and never gave me the chance to have that conversation. I mean, so that was, I'll call it one of my worst moments in business.
That sounds really...
Oh, wait, I have another really embarrassing mistake. This wasn't a leadership thing either. I made a $500,000 mistake.
Oh.
When I was in advertising.
Well, let me finish
Attention
with this
to detail.
one. I want to just reflect on this one for a minute. No, I want to hear that one too.
Like, oh, there's another mistake I made.
No, but what you just talked about is such a common thing in any relationship where somebody misunderstands what you're saying, why you're saying it, and gets reactive.
Right.
And if you don't get the chance to really define where you're coming from and have a conversation about it, then you're misunderstood and you're vilified for something that you didn't mean. And that's a horrible feeling. You know, to me, this is like one of the biggest things that people can cross in my life, is to misunderstand me and think I did something horrible when I had no intention. So I can feel you.
Right.
I totally feel you.
Well, and again, it's important to understand where they're coming from. And he comes in with his own filters. We all come in with our filters. We all come in, I'll call it, I tell people, don't pre-worry about something. Don't have a fight before it's happened. Right?
Yeah.
Just see what happened.
Yeah. Be open, be present, be curious. That's such an important thing. All right. Tell us about the $500,000 mistake.
I'll do it fast. I was a junior in advertising, and we were shooting a Kool-Aid commercial, actually. 5-day shoot. Earliest night we got out was at like 10 o'clock at night. My job was to be sure that all the legal things were handled on like whatever the legal department for the commercials, right? Because you have to get legal clearance. This was rollerblading, roller skating. And because it was a kid's commercial for Kool-Aid, the roller skaters had to have knee pads on. And I totally forgot. So now 2 days later into the shoot, the day setting, lighting, everything else. And I call the office and I say, just checking in. They go, don't forget about the knee pads. Well, we just finished shooting. They just finished taking down the sets. And we're looking at throwing it. And I remember I had the scariest producer that was there that I had to tell her that I forgot the knee pads, because I totally forgot about the knee pads. Thankfully, they didn't kill me. They liked me otherwise. And they were able to edit around it. But moral of the story, attention to detail.
Yeah.
And checklists.
That's right.
Never forgot a detail like that again.
Yeah. Wow. Photoshop.
This is before Photoshop.
I know.
This is before computer animation. This was actually, interestingly, this was shot, if anyone's from the New York area and knows Chelsea Piers, before Chelsea Piers was Chelsea Piers, it was an old abandoned pier. And and this was before the meatpacking district was a safe place to be. This was a scary neighborhood of New York. And they would have studios. They'd have like raw studio space. So we shot this commercial on where Chelsea Piers is before it became Chelsea Piers.
That's so cool. Yeah. And now people get married there.
They do.
All right. So Sarah, what are you creating in the world right now?
What am I creating in the world right now? So right now, I'm very proud of my podcast. I love my podcast because it brings the same kind of information to life, but people want, I need to meet people where they want, the challenge. We, like every other information provider, print-based information provider, are needing to adapt to the digital world where people, different methods of reading and reviewing information, and then people wanting what they want when they want. So that's really the biggest challenge with the business, is trying to figure out how to adapt the business to the digital world on so many levels with so many pressures from all angles, including, oh, by the way, who decided the internet should be free? Because to get people to pay for information, people, the world's not free. You do have to pay. So that's the biggest thing that I'm, I'll call it leading at the company. Things that we're creating, we actually have we've never done this because we're information providers, but we actually have worked with somebody on developing a CBD product for muscle and joint pain, which I'm super proud of because now you're in the Wild West. Everybody and everything is throwing CBD into everything. It's a really great resource if you have quality product. And there are a lot of people with not quality product that's out there. So we work with somebody, as Bottom Line always does, top expert, top ingredients, really, making sure good integrity and a great price point where, people are spending $20 and you got nothing in it, $200 and you're getting ripped off. So it's a great price point. So I'm super proud of that. That's called Windrush Organics. So excited about that. The podcast, we've got our bloggers, and just trying to, again, evolve the brand. I have a program. It's not out yet, but we're working on some, revised branding that will do for Bottom Line and getting further out into the digital world. Might involve my face.
I saw your face on the commercial for your CBD product.
Yes.
So that was really cool. You did a great job.
It's, I've done the interviews with the experts, and for me to be putting myself in front of a video camera in that way is definitely out of my comfort zone. So, any age you can go outside your comfort zone. Right.
That's how we grow, right?
It's true.
So the vision for the future involves rebranding. Anything else?
The challenge is we have very loyal readers. Many of them are older because we've always skewed 50 plus in our audience, which is a great audience because they've got time, they've got money, unlike younger people who don't have time and money. They're busy and they're at the beginning of their careers. So the challenge is how to also, in some ways, preserve the old, because I've got a very significant and loyal readership, and yet build a new brand underneath that. So it's almost becomes a place of running two businesses at the same time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that keeps me plenty busy. Yeah. And exercising every day so that I can maintain my energy.
Yeah. And you eat healthy?
I do eat healthy.
Tell everyone a little bit about your eating style.
So it's funny, actually, on Windrush Organics, actually, there's a video that's posted today where I talked about why natural medicine. And very briefly, so 22 years ago, when I was young, I grew up in the 1960s in the land of Fruit Loops and Pop-Tarts and had the worst diet ever. When I worked in advertising, I couldn't afford anything. I'd eat a blueberry muffin for breakfast, the kind that had the little blue flecks in it. And then I'd eat cheese popcorn for lunch, and I'd eat breakfast cereal for dinner. I mean, that was what I afforded. How I survived, I do not know. And of course, Diet Coke in between, right?
Oh, God.
So fast forward to my 30s, and my body was beat to heck. Between stress, between hormones, whatever it is, my body wasn't functioning right. I woke up in the middle of the night, I had hives and chest pains, and I was 35 years old. And long story short, emergency room gave me Xanax, they gave me prednisone, they gave me Benadryl, they said I'm allergic to my collie, and the phone number of a therapist, and said, go deal with your life. And the long story short, none of that worked. The prednisone gave me anxiety, so then I had to deal with panic attacks for years. And I got in touch with a naturopathic physician who said, here's what's really going on with you. Let's help build you up. Stop, get rid of wheat, sugar, and dairy out of your diet because it's very inflammatory. And let's build you up. So that was when I was 35, so that was 23 years ago or so. And I haven't had hives in 22 years. I mean, wow. I eat for the most part. I do cheat on it. I love pizza. So, it doesn't mean it always, like, you can never have your cheats, but overall I avoid wheat, sugar, and dairy. Is the kind of the easy.
Your entire diet before?
Yeah, pretty much. No, I didn't. Yes, ice cream. Yes. My last account in advertising was actually Haagen-Dazs. I had a lot of friends when I had Haagen-Dazs account. Yes.
Yum.
And If
Yeah,
I'm
it
going to eat
takes,
ice cream today, I'll still eat Haagen-Dazs. It's a great
yeah, I
ice cream.
mean,
Yeah.
go for the good stuff. And,
Yes.
but it takes tremendous discipline. There's so many people who know they're eating the wrong
Right.
foods and they go, oh, I shouldn't eat this. And then they
Well,
continue to eat.
well, let me tell you about that, Sandy, actually, because I thought, given how much I loved sugar in particular, I'm going to put my dog on the floor now. Okay. So, given how much I loved sugar, I thought that I would never be able to not eat sugar because I just, I loved it so much. And I realized when I stopped eating it, how much better I felt without it. Right. So and I realized how bad I felt when I did eat it. Right. So that it was able to, I was able to shift my diet because I didn't feel deprived anymore. I just felt better. You don't realize when you're on all that stuff, you don't realize how crappy you feel. So it wasn't until I stopped eating it and I went, wow, I can think clearly. I can whatever. And now, even today, and as I said, I will eat this stuff every so often. Within 5 minutes of having a scoop of ice cream, it goes to my head. I can't have more than a spoonful of ice cream where I feel it right away.
Yeah.
So it's not so hard. If you don't live in deprivation, it's not hard. If you feel like, oh, I'm deprived, that's a problem. But if you really get in touch with your body, you realize how much better you feel. And it's not that hard at all.
Yeah. And I love that you said the deprivation piece
Yeah.
because many years ago when I gained weight for the first time when I was 18, 19 years old, and all of a sudden I was bloated. I spent the year in Israel and and I put on weight for the first time in my life. And I was like, what's going on here? I feel
Right.
like obese. And I think I gained 7 pounds.
Mm.
And
I
I
know that
came
feeling,
home,
right?
right? But I remember coming home, and this was 1975, a long time ago. And nobody was doing health food except like the health food stores.
Mm-hmm.
But my best friend's family was juicing and had lost a lot of weight and was eating like avocados and sprouts and all the foods that
Right.
were very healthy at the time. And I remember taking sugar out of my diet. That was because I tried diets and I hated them because they were all
Right.
about deprivation.
Right.
And I started to eat healthy and felt like I was giving a gift to myself. And
Yeah.
it's such a different mindset that,
Yeah.
back to mindset again, which is everything.
If you put me on a diet right now, I'm the biggest brat.
Yeah.
They've got all that, whatever. I can't, even intermittent fasting, which I've tried.
Yeah.
I get up in the morning and all I can think is, you're telling me I can't eat. I need to eat.
Yeah,
So
right.
there are too many rules. If you just shift your life,
Mm-hmm.
it's different. You're just making a powerful choice of that doesn't work for me anymore.
Yeah.
And then it's a whole other perspective, and it doesn't feel like deprivation. It just is what you choose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't do well when people choose for me either.
No.
Not fun.
I wonder why your children are strong-willed.
I don't know. All right. We are up to the lightning round. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. I used to think I wasn't blank enough.
I used to think I wasn't credentialed enough.
To do what?
To stand up with all the big guys, right? So I don't have a Harvard MBA. I went to a very good college. I do have an MBA, but all those people that I sit around the dinner table with that have all their big credentials, and I'm just me. And I used to think that I needed those credentials on paper. And now, no, I'm pretty darn amazing, humble as well. But come to realize like that, it's not about the credential, but it's what you've learned and done and who you are.
Yeah, that's such an important lesson.
Yeah.
I have this argument about dating as well, because so many people say he has to have a PhD and he has to go to Ivy League. And I'm like, that does not determine how smart he is, how good of a partner he's going to be. It's just people's intelligence and common sense have very little to do with the degrees they have.
Totally. Oh, yeah. Don't get me started. We could talk a whole other time about higher education right now. I have big opinions on that one.
Yeah, me too.
No.
All right. Well, next show. Okay. Next question. What was the number one thing holding you back from becoming a woman of value? Or let's reframe that, from knowing your value.
Well, it's funny because I was actually going to say that I think the thing that held me back from being a woman of value is the world dividing the world into men and women. And this forced, contrived womanness. Other than that, because nothing ever held me back. My father always treated me as a person. He taught me to be a person. And I tell my kids all the time, and I tell young people that I mentor, there's always going to be junk going on, right? There's always going to be someone that's making more than you are, got a different project or whatever it is. And that's just distraction. Right? If I want to get from here to there, I wanted to do a good job. I wanted to get promoted, whatever it is. Don't waste your time saying, well, that guy got promoted first. Well, that one's making more than me. Well, that one got a better, like that is merely a waste of energy. And I want to go this way. So for always, so that the number one thing that didn't hold me back, but I've watched it with a lot of people, is this concern about looking over their shoulder and looking next door. Forget about them. Just do your thing. And when you do your thing, you'll grow and succeed.
Yeah. Easier said than done.
Again, I think it's all a choice. And if you realize, I've had great mentors in my life and great coaches in my life and great examples. So here's an example, easier said than done. But when you realize what you're doing to yourself. So when I was working with a coach, I was complaining to her about my younger one who would push my buttons like crazy. She was little. And then she'd push my buttons, wouldn't do what she wanted, would run up the hall, right? And then I'd chase her up the hall. And my coach goes, who's being the 4-year-old? Right? And I went, oh my gosh, that's disgusting. And I never did it again.
Yeah. Because
I realized what I was acting like. So if you can switch how you behave and you can see what you're doing, think about when, friends or other people in your life that are complaining and always worrying about everybody else. How do you feel about when you listen to them? Yeah. And if you can see yourself in that, then maybe you can free yourself to not worry about it.
See yourself and free yourself. I like it.
There you go.
It's your new motto.
I'll add it to my list.
That's right. I love it. I've heard, compare and despair. I think that that's true for the dieting world. Your body's not good enough. You're not good enough. And we always look out there and it's like, stay in your own lane. Right. This is your lane.
Right. And social media, everybody has their Insta perfect world. Guess what?
Please.
They're not perfect.
Insta filtered.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, again, one of the interesting things with the experts that I really realized was how we were talking about how human they were. I sat one time next to one of the top economists in the country, if not the world. And all he wanted to talk about was his preventive cardiologist and his bicycling. Yeah. And right. So he too was human. And a lot of these people that they're so fabulous, but in their lane. And if you got them out of their lane, they were as human as anyone else. So like you see the snapshots. I put my perfect family photos up as well. They don't see the kids pummeling each other 3 minutes before the camera goes up.
Yes.
And they used to pummel each other. And then they go.
Well, there are people actually making a living now on YouTube talking about the pummeling and the imperfections and all that. I mean, look at Brene Brown is all about imperfection and vulnerability because that's who we are.
It is, and that's okay. As long as you don't wallow in it. Don't wallow in it.
No wallowing. No. Yuck. Okay. And I think you just gave great advice, but do you have any other advice to a woman who wants to become more empowered?
I don't think you can give, I think it really is, don't worry, just trust yourself every step of the way and just do your thing, focus on what you need to do. It's not like a checklist of what I need to do to become empowered. Just choose to believe in yourself, choose to work with integrity, choose to do the best job that you can, choose to be honest, to look people in the eye. It just is not, there's nothing that complicated about life. You didn't ask me what my favorite business book is. My favorite business book is The 1 Minute Manager. It's just, what's the goal? How are you going to get there? That's life is not that complicated. We overcomplicate things like crazy.
Yeah. Overthinking, I totally agree.
Everything. Yeah. Over everything. Yes.
Yep. Okay. So 2 more questions and then we're out.
I'm having so much fun. And my dog is calmed down.
Okay. We'll stay another hour.
Right.
All right. If you were to give advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Just trust, and relax. Honestly, young people are so in a rush, right? The old, I got out of college, aren't I? How come I didn't graduate with a degree in vice president? Like, stop rushing. And I've worked through this with my daughters, my older one, who is very competitive. She was an athlete in school and drive. And with each level that she's gone through, she realizes how right I am, where she thinks she knows it all. And then you don't know what you don't know. And then over time, she realizes, wow, there's a whole world that I didn't realize. Yeah. So don't rush it at all. Like, just absorb everything you can, ask every question that you can. I always tell new employees, ask all your questions right away, because that's when no one expects anything of you. 6 months from now, a year from now, if you ask me that basic question, now you're an idiot. But early on, take your time and really just enjoy that ride and absorb from anyone and everyone you can.
I like that. I used to be afraid to ask the questions.
Right.
I remember thinking I had to know it all. Every new job where I was so underprepared, I thought they would think less of me if I asked questions. And now I know I want people to ask questions. Like, don't hold back.
Right. Totally.
Yeah. Good advice.
Yeah.
And finally, Sarah, how would you like to be remembered?
So I want to be remembered as someone who deeply cared, and that I touched people. Like that everything I did was because I deeply cared for the people, for the mission, for the world.
Beautiful.
I deeply care.
Well, thank you so much. This has been an inspirational, how long we spent together.
I have no idea. I'm staring at a dot. I don't know.
It's nice to be able to learn more about you, since you've always been the one finding out about me. And it's fascinating. I mean, I think you've really shared so many great tips for people to have an empowered life, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate being on, and I can't wait to share this with all my world so that they can learn about being an empowered woman.
If you would like to step more fully into your value, grab a free copy of The Ultimate Guide to Becoming a Woman of Value on my website, thewomanofvalue.com. Just click the link at the top of the homepage. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to click the subscribe button in your listening app. And if there's something in this episode that inspired you, please share it with others, because the more we share these inspirational stories, the more women of value we will have in this world. I'll see you next time.